I do believe, first time on this program, the general manager of the Buffalo Bills coming off of his draft, and I greatly appreciate Brandon Beane joining us here on this program. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing well, Rich. Appreciate you having me on, buddy.
You got it. And before we get to this year's draft, I just want to jump into the Wayback Machine about Josh Allen, because we just get so deep into quarterback this, quarterback that, and how difficult it is to evaluate a quarterback. When did you decide we're taking Josh Allen? When did that happen for you?
Yeah, it was probably, I would say, about 3 weeks prior to that draft. He was the guy, and it was just at that point, Rich. We somehow backed into the playoffs that first year, and so we were at 21, and then right before free agency started, I was able to trade Cordy Glenn, and we moved up with Cincinnati. We moved up to 12. So about 3 weeks out, I was trying, from all the way down till we got it done on the clock, I was trying to figure out where I had to get Josh, and was it going to be an option? Because obviously Cleveland had one. The Giants, I'd figured out it was no secret they weren't in love with the quarterback. So I was trying to get to 2. We couldn't get there, and then we knew the Jets were at 3. So it's just ultimately trying to figure out where we could go to land him, and luckily we got the deal done with Tampa on the clock.
So are you? So you jumped up knowing you could get him, right? Like so as soon as you got him, why did he stand out to you? Obviously, you probably were grinding tape on everybody at the position. Why did he jump out to you, Brandon?
Yeah, Rich, he's just meeting him. Obviously, we saw his film, and people were pointing out inaccuracy and all that. But I'm telling you, I watched 2 years of film on this guy, and his accuracy was better than people gave him credit for. When you look at what the throws that were catchable, how many plays he got out of that he was about to be sacked, that it was, it's 1st and 10, now it's 2nd and 10, but it was about to be 2nd and 18. And catchable balls. So we just kind of created our own system for all the quarterbacks. It's hard because you're got guys that are playing in the SEC, ACC, Pac-12, and then you got, him playing in the Mountain West. And so, and then when you met Josh and he was super smart. We put him through, Brian Dable kind of, we went and visited all these guys, did privates with them, and Dable came up with a test, some material to send them out and teach them and test them when we got there. And then we taught him some more stuff. We sat in the room and Josh blew us away with how smart he was and how quickly he processed. And then his on-the-field stuff, Dable would give him, different things after the ball snap, where to throw it, all these guys. And so just through all the different processes, Rich, he was pretty strong. And, yes, he needed to clean up things, footwork, his base. He had some things all out of sorts, but the DNA everywhere we looked, super smart, hard worker, leader, fun to be around, guys will like him. All those things just told us this was the guy we wanted to take a swing on.
That's what I wanted to also ask you about, Brandon, is that, one of the things I love about him is just how normal he is, and how down-to-earth he is, and how cool he is, and how just regular people he is. I see where he is with kids. I see all that stuff, like his dream come true stuff. I'm just wondering, when you saw the tape, you saw the film, and the eye in the sky wasn't lying to you, before you met him, were you nervous saying, boy, I hope I like this guy? I mean, was that one of those?
Yeah. So it's funny. I busted his chops pretty good for a little bit because the first time I met him was in Mobile. And we had this little boardroom at this hotel that's across the street from where the players stay. And so we brought him in there. Baker was there, Mason Rudolph. There may have been one other quarterback we brought in there. We spent like 30, 35 minutes with Josh. And we were talking to him, but we also had some film up trying to figure his out. And he was, once I got to know him through the rest of the process, he was so nervous. He wasn't unimpressive, but it was his least impressive performance. And the next time we were around him was in Laramie, and our owners, Terry and Kim, were with us. And he was just as calm and cool and collected as any of them, and he was more natural. It was like he wasn't trying to impress. And when I left Laramie, I was really fired up. It wasn't a final decision because he was the first one that we met with. but it's like when you meet your wife, you kind of you're like, man, I don't, maybe you haven't proposed to him yet, but this is the one.
Brandon Beane, Buffalo Bills general manager here on the Rich Eisen Show. And of course, once you get that unicorn, it's all about protecting him and obviously building around him. What does Dalton Kincaid bring to that equation, in your estimation, the kid you drafted?
Yeah, Rich, we were, coming in this draft, not necessarily saying first round we needed to add, receiver, tight end, whatever it may be, but we were hoping to add a weapon, some form or fashion, to add to our group with Diggs and Gabe Davis. And Khalil Shakir is a fifth-rounder that came on last year. James Cook is a running back that's a mismatch guy. And then Dawson Knox. Those are kind of our lead weapons as we enter the draft. And so whether it was a receiver, tight end, whatever, we were just looking for another guy in the pass game that could be some type of weapon mismatch. And we feel that Dalton, he's got speed. He's got really good hands. He's got separation ability. I would say above average run after catch. Just a guy, a red zone threat, makes plays when the ball's in the air. He wins his fair share of contested balls. And so, one of the things the media was asking, after we selected him, well, you extended Dawson Knox last year. Like, how does this work? It was explaining to them we're a big 11 personnel team, running 3 wide, but we'll just do more 12. But it's almost he'll play that F tight end, which he's going to be flexed out as more of a receiver. It's just a different style of receiver for us, kind of a guy that can be in the middle of the field. And when teams want to try and take Diggs away and double him or bracket him, now this guy's going to get one-on-one coverage.
Well, in terms of that too, Brandon, I kind of mentioned it after you drafted Kincaid on the air, that on the NFL Network coverage, is that last year, a lot of the issues, if there were any, is that your quarterback tried to do too much in the red zone. The running game wasn't somebody that he was the one running it, right, or trying to make a play, and that Kincaid will do that. And it does appear with your running back room now with Damian Harris, Latavius Murray, Nyheim Hines, that this is a focus. Like, okay, inside the 20, it's not all on Josh, and he could just hand it to somebody. He doesn't run it. Or he could throw it to somebody, and if Diggs is doubled, let's get some more options. And Kincaid he is just a touchdown maker. Brandon, I'm wondering if that was your philosophy here going into the offseason.
Yeah, definitely. The offseason was, one of the things we talked to Josh about was limiting unnecessary hits. And listen, doesn't mean we don't want him to run, doesn't mean we don't want him to make plays with his feet. It just means it's a long season, and we want you, fully healthy for the stretch run and hopefully a playoff run. And you're right, there were times when our offense bogged down, in various points, especially in the red zone, as you mentioned. And so, yes, we got to have a better run game down there. We added Damian Harris, who is probably a better complementary player to James Cook than what we had before, can bring some power. Damian actually had some good games against us, so we were caught the brunt end of his skill set a few times playing the Patriots. And then, we had Latavius Murray, an even bigger back that can be short yardage, goal line, all that stuff as another option that Dorsey can use. And, now adding Kincaid is another red zone threat with Dawson, with Gabe Davis, with Diggs. And hopefully Josh doesn't have to feel like he's got to do too much.
And in terms of working the draft board, did you hop in front of Dallas because you knew they were going to take a tight end, or you thought that? Is that what happened on Thursday night?
That's exactly what happened. Was we just, again, you'd have to get it out of them, but we had a good feeling they were looking for a starting tight end after losing Dalton Schultz, and so just trying to make sure if he got that far. There were a few other teams that we had pegged that would even before Dallas select Dalton. So really wasn't sure he would get there, but once he got past the Chargers, they were a team that I said could definitely take him. They went with the TCU kid, who's a really good player too. And at that point, after they picked him, I started trying to work the phones and see, hey, you know what? We didn't have a lot of ammo. We only came in with 6 picks, but this was a guy that I really thought could be a difference maker and was worth giving up, our late 4th-round pick for.
You surprised Osiris Torrance was available for you to select in the 2nd round? Were you surprised about that?
Yeah, same thing. We had good grades on Osiris. Really liked him, and So it was an easy pick from that standpoint. He was definitely sticking out on our board, and it gives us another guy up front, a stout 335-pounder that, the cool thing about his story, Rich, is he transfers with Coach Napier from Louisiana Lafayette, and he goes up there, and Coach Napier brought him there. He told me, he's a culture guy, and so if a coach is bringing this guy with him, yeah, he's a good player, but he's also a guy that, the Florida Gators were going to kind of look to of what kind of player and person, he wants on and off the field. And the other cool part of that is he wasn't promised a starting job to transfer. And I think a lot of kids would have said, well, if I'm not starting necessarily, then I'm going to stay where I'm at. They started him on the third team in spring ball, and by the time they started the regular season, he had won that starting job. And it wasn't too big for him playing in the SEC, which I think we can all attest is probably the closest thing to NFL football there is.
Well, it's also ironic, too, Brandon Beane, that there's a receiver who's 6'4" named Shorter, but you drafted him nonetheless. How does he fit into your equation here?
Yeah, we've got, other than Gabe Davis, I would say our receiving core is probably on the smaller side. And so this gave us a chance, yet another outside perimeter receiver to learn, that outside role, be a key backup for Steph and for Gabe, and he can stretch the field vertically. Obviously, he can win with his size. He transferred from Penn State. He's a Northeast kid. Went down to Florida and had a little bit more production, and he can stretch the field a little bit vertically. He's kind of a build-up speed, but once he's up and running, and then he's a really good special teams guy. Should help us on fourth down. So we have a path to get him a jersey right away, and hopefully he can grow into being a more productive guy as a receiver as well.
That's two Florida players, Brandon. Are you pulling like a Howie Roseman with Florida, like he does with Georgia? Are you doing that?
Well, it's funny. We were laughing in the room when they kept selecting Georgia players. We're like, man, we're going to go down there, and Howie Roseman's going to have his own wing in the Georgia building to watch players. And so after we took Shorter, I'm like, well, hey, somebody call Napier and tell him Buffalo wants one in Florida.
Okay, that's what I was about to say. It's like you got the other side of the cocktail party. You know what I mean? Like you can all go down to Jacksonville.
We took Kyrie Elam. We took Kyrie Elam in the first from there last year. So yeah, a few Gators this way.
There you go. A couple more minutes left with you, and a couple more questions for you. With Stefon Diggs, I mean, he had a couple of moments after the final loss of the season, and also I guess on his social media where. He seemed to be really crestfallen about everything that's going on there. Do you have a conversation with him just to check in with him, just a check with me type moment to make sure he's still all in with being with Buffalo at all?
Yeah, I mean that's part of who Stefon is. He's it's part of what makes him great. He's one of the most competitive people you'll ever be around. I tell people I grew up in this business in Carolina around Steve Smith. And Steve, he wore his emotions on his sleeve, and sometimes people didn't like it. But, I go to war with Steve Smith any day of the week. I'd rather have guys like that I got to pull down. And I think Steph, in his own way, is in that bucket. I mean, this guy, when he's here, Rich, he competes his tail off. If he steps on the practice field, it's a war. And he's not looking to go against a backup. He's looking to go against, Tre'Davious White or, somebody of Trey's caliber. So, no, it's – the season didn't, Steph looks at it in a way of, we put all this work into it, we should be better than this. Why did we play this way? Like, let me make plays. And I know he feels like there's probably opportunities that maybe we could have gotten the ball and we didn't. And he wants the ball in his hands. You love that about him. And if it doesn't go that way, he's going to let you know. And so that's who he is. That's who we've known him to be. And so I think we're in really good shape there, and I know he'll, at the right time, he'll get here and rejoin and be ready to roll for the season.
All right, last one for you, Brandon Beane. Damar Hamlin, he's full go. Like this is he's back, and nobody's thinking about what happened last year. I'm not saying that he's not being monitored. I'm just saying it's just the page is turned, and he's back and he's playing football. Like that's it.
It's crazy, Rich. I was talking to somebody earlier, to think where, after that happened and just watching him in the hospital fight for his life, for several days before he, it was at least 48 to 72 hours before the docs told us that, he's going to live. And so to go from that and the things he's gone through this offseason to get healthy again, it is a miracle that he is full go, full clearance. It's hard for us to believe. We sent him to multiple specialists. We sent our medical staff with him because we wanted to hear it too. And so he has been given, all systems go. The other part of that is, there's a mental hurdle, though, here that we need to work with him, and it's natural. I mean, this guy, was revived on the field, and this is unprecedented from anything I've seen. And so we're still going to support him, help him. He wants to make this return. I think there's going to be some ups and downs. I think that's natural, but we're going to be here for him, and we're hoping he wants like heck to line up and run out that tunnel the first game of the season, and I'm not going to doubt him.
Anything you could detail about the mental side, what you're helping him with?
We definitely we have him with a couple of different people, one in house and then one one on the outside, a counselor that's kind of. That one's more of like a traumatic type counselor someone who's a patient or someone in life that's gone through a traumatic injury or recovery and the obstacles. So, and then we've got a mental performance person in-house that's working with him. So that's where we're at now, and we're going to surround him with anything we need. I have a really good relationship with his parents after this whole thing, spending some time with him. So talk to his dad every couple of weeks, and just kind of letting him know what I'm seeing here and kind of where they need to support from their end as parents. But we've got all our arms around him, and I know the whole country's rooting for him.
Seeing him in the Oval Office was awesome. That was unbelievable. That was unbelievable, Brandon.
That was a cool deal. The president called. It's weird, Rich. He called my phone. He got my number and calls my phone while I'm in the hospital and to talk to his parents. And it was on that call, I heard him, offer that invite, and his parents were just flabbergasted that he took time to call, and then secondly to invite them. And really cool. Damar loved it, and it's a cool story for him to be able to do that.
Wait a minute, you're in the hospital. You look down. Is it a 202 area code? It's got to be a blocked number, right? It's blocked. The number's blocked, right? No.
No, I got a text that someone with him was going to be calling. So a young lady, Ashley, called my phone and said, "Hey, I've got President Biden right here." So they gave me the heads up what the number would be.
Okay, okay. I need that. And so then you hand the phone. That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
It's crazy. Yeah, we got in a little room in the hospital, and I put it on speaker, and he did a great job. Talked to him for probably 15 minutes. I mean, it wasn't like a 2-minute, "Hey, we're praying for him." I mean, he asked them all about their family and everything. It was very well done.
Brandon, thanks so much. And speaking of family, please send my best to the Pagula family. Will you please do that?
Definitely will.
Please do that.
I definitely will. Appreciate you having me on, Rich.
Anytime. Please, let's make this more on the regular if you're interested. And congrats on your draft. Thanks for the time.
Yep. Sounds good. Thank you.
That's Brandon Beane right here on the Rich Eisen Show, the general manager of the Buffalo Bills. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.